one thing that I'll probably get told off for on this podcast, I'm completely against debt. I'm completely against mortgages. I have no debt. I've always bought property with cash. Completely against leveraging and shit.
Let's say, for argument's sake, at £2 million, if you could leverage that and potentially own £8 million worth of assets, what is it that you personally feel doesn't sit right with you?
No one's asked me this in quite a while. People that use mortgages don't make 200 fucking grand a month. When I didn't have money, I used mortgages. And when I did have money, I bought cash. The reason I only buy with cash, it helps me sleep at night. It gives me more peace of mind that I own everything. Banks can't fuck with me. Mortgage rates can't go up on me. It's a fucking great feeling.
PBK podcast is sponsored by Faraway Pizza, the fastest growing pizza company in the UK. With over 160 stores, you can definitely find one near you. If you want a slice of their flavoursome pizza, then you can use our discount code PBK20 at faraway.co.uk to get 20% off. Once again, PBK20 at faraway.co.uk to get 20% off.
And we are back for another episode of the PBK podcast. Doesn't matter if we're traveling overseas, we make sure we bring these episodes directly to you. Today I'm actually excited because I've got someone that I'm working with directly. William Brown, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
We met, I would say about over a year ago now, with Alfred. And obviously, I think at that point, you'd quite recently exited your company at that point, I believe.
Oh, it was just after, wasn't it?
It was just after, yeah.
Sold it in September, and I think that was October, wasn't it?
So I think, like, for those that aren't familiar with you, I know a lot of people are, but can you give them a brief intro to who you are and what you do?
For sure. I never know where to start.
Yeah.
Do
you start with, well, I was a DJ? Do you start with, well, I built a company, I've exited the multi-millions? Where do you begin? Like, where do you feel like your journey started?
Well, the usual first thing that I tell people is that I've been an entrepreneur since I was very young. So, for example, instead of just skateboarding, I started filming and editing videos and then selling them to my friends. And then instead of just doing graffiti, I started a graffiti magazine and started trying to stock it in stores and stuff. Then instead of just buying records and DJing, I started making my own music and trying to get that out there. And then obviously that was my first ever proper career, where I got signed to a good label, started touring all over the world, DJed in over 45 countries, which was a great learning experience. But then the money was not very good, and that led me to start trading on the side to make a bit extra income. And then that spawned into a massive e-learning company that I grew from zero, from my parents' spare room, to $16.4 million over five and a half years, and then sold and then met you.
Yeah, so that's the kind of, do you think traveling like that many countries, do you think that played an important role in terms of like sort of opening your mind to there is more out there?
Yeah, I learned a lot from music, man. I learned about sales, marketing, contract management, communication, dealing with people, dealing with myself as well, like when you're flying all the bloody time all over the world, money management as well. I bought my first ever property for 51k with a mortgage off just towards the end of my music career, off music money that I'd saved up. And that was hard to save that bloody money from music as well. So then I was kind of already thinking about investing and stuff like that. So you can kind of follow the path along the way. But yeah, the music career taught me a lot, man.
Do you think like with being obviously around a lot of musicians, successful people as well, what was it that still made you say, actually, I'm still going to kind of keep my feet on the ground. I actually want to save money. I want to invest in assets alongside, because see, particularly like obviously not just Dubai, but in general, you see people popping bottles, living lifestyles, telling you nice watches. What was it that still made you say, I actually still want to invest?
Well, my dad used to say this thing to me all the bloody time. He would say, if you broke both your legs, then you couldn't DJ and you'd have no money, and you'd be out of a career. You'd be broke. So he was always planting the seeds of doubt in me, and he was like, will you still be DJing when you've got a wife and a kid and you're 45, 55, 65? He did make me think, how sustainable is this music career? Will I still want to bloody do all the flying and the hotels on my own and stuff in years to come? And I don't know where I'd learned about property and real estate from, but I understood the concept of you can kind of store money in there, make more money from it. And I used I was planning to use the rent as a hedge against the music career, because some months I'd make 12k, some months I'd make 0k, some months I'd make 3k, some months I'd make £500. So it was so up and down. I was probably making, I don't know, 30, 40K a year before tax. And I was just aware that nothing lasts forever, you know, and really investing was just a hedge to allow me to do music without worrying. Because at the time I was worrying. I was trying to get shows. I was trying to make more money. I was trying to save money just as a hedge, really.
Yeah. So it's kind of just sort of not having all your eggs in one basket, saying, let me just have something that at least is going to give me an element of stability.
Yeah, it was just necessity, really, because my mum worked at Tesco on the checkout all her life. My dad, you know, was like a doctor's assistant and then worked in food delivery and stuff. So, like, they were never rich, but they never really tried to get rich. I don't think they ever really wanted to be rich. Maybe they didn't know they even could. But I just had this desire to be the first rich person in the family, to build wealth and look after them and look after myself and look after the future and stuff. So I think, if anything, music being so sporadic income-wise, I had to manage money. Because what are you going to do on a month where you have no shows? You've got to have cash reserves to see through. So if it taught me anything, the big lesson was capital management, really.
Do you think, like you said, so many different businesses you touched on, from magazines to filming to, you know, investment to now, was the driver behind those businesses, was it, I want to be successful, I want to be rich, or I just want to see it happen? Like, what really?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Dude, when I started making the skateboard videos, which was technically my first ever business, I made like £50, so it wasn't very successful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just was creative, and I just like building things, designing things, creating things, and selling things as well. And everything I've ever done, I've done that. So skateboarding, the videos, graffiti, the magazine, music, DJing and making records, trading. I went on to build the education company, and on and on. So yeah, it's just, I think I've just got it in me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, like in different fields, and it does tend to be like, just the common denominator is liking something and then trying to find a business out of something that you like, as opposed to, you know, I think when you chase the money, it's very easy just to sort of get stuck in, I want the money. So, whereas if you find something you generally enjoy, I think it's a lot easier to kind of be like, okay, there's something here that can kind of make sense.
I agree. Yeah, usually you've kind of planted the seed in my mind there. So usually the people that do the best, they love what they do and then they try and monetize it.
Yeah.
And the people that struggle try and make money from something, but they don't know what.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of two camps.
And you almost end up with that sort of shiny penny syndrome. Like, I saw somebody trading. I saw somebody doing crypto. I saw somebody reselling.
Yeah.
But it's because you don't love it. The second it doesn't make money, it's very easy to say, I'm going to do something else.
So true, man. So true. Yeah.
With the education business, obviously it grew very exponentially. When you started it, like, what was like your initial thoughts? Did you expect it to grow so quickly?
Do you know how it started?
Now tell me.
All right, I'll tell you. So I was just doing music and I was trading on the side, and I had a Twitter account with about 200 followers, and I would post my trades, chat with other traders, that kind of thing. It's just a thing for fun on the side. And then one day someone messaged me and they said, Will, I've been following you for a while. I can see that you're doing very well. I'm struggling. Is there any way you could help me? Like, can you do something for me? And that guy actually paid me £50, came to my house one morning for a few hours. He made a Word document of notes to take away with him, right? And I kept that Word document, and then just, I don't know how or why I had this thought, but I thought if he bought it, maybe one or two of my other followers would buy it as well. So I messaged a few followers, and one or two people bought it. And that was the start of the education company, was selling a Word document for £50.
I think there's two really interesting things there. The first thing is that when I speak to a lot of people say, I don't want to be on the internet. I don't really want to share. They have like, you know, a lot of, what are my friends going to say? Maybe I don't know enough, you know, and all these sorts of things. But I tell a lot of people, like, you know, a lot of the time when you start, you're just talking to the air. Like, you know, I remember when I was first on Instagram, I was just posted, like, you know, for your one like, that might be from your mum, like, just posting. But the more you get yourself out there, the more people can actually see what you do. They can buy into you as an individual. They can actually see that you've got credibility and that you know what you're talking about. So I think, you know, a sort of takeaway for a lot of people, just start sharing your journey, because people buy into people.
Yeah, dude, that is a really valuable lesson. It's just go out there, tell people what you do, tell people your journey and your story, and just share it. And you will attract people to you who are interested in it. And eventually there's going to be someone that is stuck in some way that wants your help, and they'll pay for your help. That's it.
The other thing is, I guess, obviously, that proof of concept.
Yeah.
Because it's that first moment where someone says, actually, no, you've helped me. And I think, you know, sometimes we actually learn the most through teaching. So when you get to sit down with somebody and you realize, actually, I can fill in a few gaps, like I can help you here. Because for me personally, like I always, for ages, you know, sort of a similar sort of journey, and people saying, oh, can you help me with this? I'm really struggling. And I'll be like, me too, bro. Like, me too. Like, but I think it's, you don't, until you sit down with people, it's very easy to have that kind of imposter syndrome. Be like, oh, I don't know enough. I haven't done it for long enough.
Yeah.
Did you ever suffer from that, or were you always quite confident in your own abilities?
I think we all struggle from that. I think there's something in all of us, even to this day, right? One of the offers that I sell now is $85,000. You can only pay in full, and it's to help you to sell your info business over a 12-month period.
Say that again, sorry, help you sell your...
So people that have an online education business that's doing at least $25,000 a month net profit, and that want to exit, I help them get ready for exit and then sell the company. But the truth is, I mean, I don't know whether they can exit their company. They don't know whether they can exit the company. The M&A advisor that helps me with that, there's no certainties, there's no guarantees. You know, it's likely they'll find a buyer, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So when someone buys that offer, there's always something in me that says, fucking hell, I really hope that these guys exit. I hope they exit soon. I hope they exit for a good multiple.
Yeah.
I hope it goes smoothly. I hope, you know, this bad thing doesn't happen, that bad thing doesn't happen. And I've never had anyone that didn't exit, but there's still that little bit of fear in me that's like, you know, and I think that's natural as a human.
No, definitely. I think it's overcome it, and also saying that, you know what, if you operate with integrity and you do understand that you do have value to add, you're never going to be perfect. I think a lot of people, when it comes to reasons why I see people struggle, is that they're trying to be perfect day one. They're trying to put out an offering that is better than things that people have spent, you know, sometimes tens of millions putting together with full teams of 100 people. But it's about just creating something that has value, and over time you can tier upwards.
For sure. I think the way that you conquer it is just knowing that you've done what you say that you do, you know. And if you've genuinely done what you are helping people to do, you've got integrity and you're good to go. If you haven't done what you're selling people on doing, you don't have integrity. You should not be selling that, and you shouldn't feel good about selling that.
No, definitely. I think there's a lot of conversations, whether it be in the property space, you know, trading space, sales, around like the good and the bad of courses. And I was always like, early on, I was always very, I'd say partly because of, like I said, my own imposter syndrome. I would, people selling courses, people doing this. But then now that we actually have like the community and we actually see the results, and I'm like, oh, this is sick.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually helping people, obviously. And like, I don't pretend like there's not a monetary return for myself, but like, you're genuinely seeing that there's, you know, people that have maybe bounced around other groups that for whatever reason, not because they're not good, but just it didn't end up working for them.
Yeah.
And have come to me and they've actually now done their first deal, you know, in 6 months and made money. And you're like, oh, okay, this is something, this is a thing.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I just had a brand new client yesterday who's been with us for about 8 weeks, built his offer from scratch, brand new training program, paid ads, sales process, everything. And he got his first ever 4K sale yesterday. And I went into the kitchen and my girlfriend was there and I was saying, oh, Preston just got his first 4K sale. Like, yes, and we were celebrating the win. So that's, when your clients get results, it fuels you. And then you feel even better. You're like pumped up. You're like, let's go again.
Yeah,
you know, I want to do it for more people.
Yeah, no, you'd be buzzing for them. And like, it's also like when people are now saying, well, should I do it? You can have those conversations where you're like, and some people you have to say, look, this is not for you. Like, there's people that I'll sit down and be like, oh, I need a mentor. And I'm like, I look at them and say, no, you don't. You just need to do, like, you've got everything there. You need to do the business. You have that conversation. And there's some people you say, okay, you know what? I can see how the money you invested, you're going to, whether it's make 5x, 10x that amount of money, but it's going to make sense for you. So to go back to your business. So you were trading, you saw this kind of proof of concept with your first £50. By the way, if you're watching this right now, you got a steal of a deal in terms of, you got an amazing deal. But to be fair, he could also argue that he helped a bit with some of the content and some of the product with his Word document.
Yeah.
Very early on, not obviously now. But yeah, amazing deal with that. So you're onto a win. But also for someone like that, it's like that person took action and said, look, I can see what I want.
Yeah.
And we can make it work. So you saw that and you started to build that out as your initial offering. How long did it take you from saying, okay, this is my first £50 of income from this business, to it outstripping the maybe sort of 2 to 3K you averaging from the DJing side of things?
I think it was 2018. It was March, April 2018, I think, maybe 2019, that happened and that first sale was made. And then I sold it to 2 or 3 other people from my Twitter following. And then they did something that I actually didn't expect at the time. So they, one of them said, oh, there's no images on the Word document. Can we put images in? I was like, okay, yeah. And one of them said, oh, but what about this thing? And what about a broker? And what about that thing? So those first 3 or 4 customers helped me make the product and make the product better. And then I just took my chances with raising the price. And I was like, right, let's try £75. And then someone bought it. And I was like, oh, wow, let's try £100. And someone bought it. I was like, whoa, this is cool. And it just felt like free money because I was just selling this 2, 3, 4, 5-page Word document and nothing else at the time. And I just slowly learned to make the product better from their feedback. And then I slowly raised the price, which kind of kept working. And then it evolved from a Word document to more like an ebook PDF thing with a bit of branding. And then I thought of a company name and stuff. And then towards the end of that year, it turned into a Dropbox folder with the Word document PDF thing and a few videos. So I slowly made it bigger and better. I slowly raised the price. And by the end of that first year, I'd made about £24,000, right, as I did that across the year, which was insane. And that was not far off my music income. And that year, with the education side of things and the music side of things, I'd made 50, 60 grand pounds, which was massive to me. And then I kind of knew that I had something working. So I was still DJing, and I was just building this education arm. Into the second year, we did about 24 the first year, just above or below $250,000 the second year. And that was through starting a YouTube channel, which was massive for traffic. And then I would make YouTube videos. I'd send the viewers to Twitter, nurture them on Twitter, and sell them the education. That was the whole thing. So it was all organic for year 1 and 2. And that's what got us up to, in year 2, about £250,000. And then I had a full-blown course. I was doing coaching calls and the files that came with it and making 1-2 YouTube videos. And really, I was kind of learning, right, if I get traffic and attention and eyeballs, and then I nurture it, and then people like me and trust me and understand how I can help them, then they want to buy from me. So if I can just do more of that, I'll get more sales. And if I make the product better and raise the price, I'll make more money from the sales. And that was the first couple of years. And then in year 3, I learned about paid ads and sales processes. And that completely changed the business. We went from $250,000 to about 1.3 million that third year. So it's a massive jump, and pretty much all from paid ads, making one great program, which was 2K, and just selling the hell out of that 2K program that third year.
Yeah, that's amazing growth. And obviously, I've seen that over time. And then, so that was year 3. So how long into the business? When did you exit?
So I exited last September, which was, I think it was year 6 of the business.
And throughout that time, how many days do you think you were kind of working on that business sort of on a monthly basis? Like, were you personally putting into it?
When I exited?
Just sort of throughout, throughout the life cycle, like early on when you were transitioning.
Dude, I mean, in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years, I was working every day, 7 days a week, every day of the month, every month of the year, just constantly building, growing, learning, improving, Oh yeah, just non-stop.
And how important do you think? Obviously, you now focus quite heavily on the paid ad side of things, but how important do you think was that organic reach that you built initially?
Well, organic is a great thing because it keeps your margin super high, right? But that last company was, I would say it was 95% paid ads, to be honest. It was just really heavy on paid ads. Organic helped us. We still had a good YouTube, a good Twitter, decent Instagram, but it was just ads. It was just paid ads into a sales process, which at the end was YouTube ads to a VSL, to a sales call. Towards the end of the company, the product was $8,500 for the front end training program, $6,000 for the back end mastermind, and a $350 a month software as well. And when I sold the company, all in, we were doing about $800K a month.
Which is some serious numbers from that first £50.
Yeah.
Why did you? Because I remember, I think, like looking at some of your videos, it was a conversation with like a mentor that made you actually consider selling in the first place. What was it that made you say, you know what, despite the fact that we're doing, $850 a month, this is something that maybe I'm gonna sort of cash in my chips here?
Yeah, well, because I didn't even know I could sell that business, right? Until I was in do you know who Dan Bradbury is?
Not familiar myself, no.
So he has a really great financial literacy mastermind in England that I was in. And I think it was either the first or the second day that I was at that mastermind in person. We were having lunch. I was sat across from Dan, and Dan said to me, so when do you think you're going to sell the business? And I was like, I can't sell it. It's an online course coaching business. It's tied to my kind of name, my face. So I'm the biggest kind of key man risk aspect. And he was like, well, no, you can sell it. It's just if you sell it now, you will probably not sell for much and not to a very good buyer. And if you make it saleable, then you'll sell to a better buyer for probably a respectable price. So he planted the seed. And then I think it was 2022, towards the end of 2022, I was at the Address Beach Resort in the marina where I used to live. I was in the cafe downstairs writing in my journal. And I was just thinking, like, what am I doing with my life? I was just having one of those moments where I was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? What am I going to do with the next few years? And I'd made quite a lot of money. So I had good cash reserves. I'd bought 6 or 7 properties with cash. The business was fucking crushing as well. I was kind of pretty much removed from the business by that stage because I had a great sales team, setting team, general manager, sales team manager, coaching team, whatever. And I was just having a moment. And I wrote in my journal, if I had 10 million in cash right now, what would I do with my days? And I wrote down, my number one favorite thing to do is to talk about business. That's what I wrote down. Like, my number one favorite thing to do is to go for drinks, go for cigars with my buddies and say, right, how's your business? How much are you making a month? What are you stuck on? Same for me. And I thought, well, I'm not doing that. I didn't trade anymore by this stage. I didn't enjoy the trading business. It was to make me money. That was like the make Will rich company, basically. I was extremely passionate about trading. I cared about the product and the customers, but that business was to make money. It wasn't a passion as such. So I thought, right, well, I don't want this business anymore. I don't need this business anymore. I want to go and kind of build something new and go down the online business route. So let me try and sell a company and move out of that and move into this. So I WhatsApped Dan Bradbury literally then and there. And I was like, Dan, I've decided I want to sell. Please, can you mentor me through the sale? And then he mentored me through the sale. That was November 2022. And then we exited in September 2023.
How many sort of like people did you look at when you were looking to exit? Were there multiple companies, multiple offers? What was sort of the process like? Because we recently had, I don't know if you know D Ludlow, does a lot of stuff in the M&A space. Well, we recently had him. So for people that are not as familiar in the property space, because there'll be a lot of people that are thinking, listen, I'm talking buy-to-lets, GDVs, and we're talking about new things here. So what was that process actually like? Like, how long did it take? How long was like from when they first kind of put an offer of interest over? What was the due diligence process like? And did you have to stay in the business at all for any period of time?
Here was the process. So I said to Dan, I want to sell. And then I started doing a call with Dan every other week. And for the first couple of months, we tried to sell it ourselves without an M&A advisor. So Dan was like, right, message all your customers, see if there's any interest. And there was none. Then he said, right, let's start going out to competitors and see if we can find a competitor that wants to acquire you. And again, we got a few bites, but nothing really came of it. And he said, right, speak to your team and speak to your friends. Would any of those be potential acquirers? Did that? No interest. So when we'd gone down those 3 avenues, Dan said, right, if those aren't going to work, we need a M&A advisor with a good book of buyers. And then he introduced me to a M&A advisor called Dominic, who was the guy that held my hand. Dominic took a look at the business. He was happy that he felt that it was saleable. He helped us build what's called an IM, an investor memorandum, which is basically like a sales document that I would send to you and send to whoever else to kind of just give you an insight into the business to gauge your interest. We sent that out to a handful of people, and then we had a venture capital firm in Canada that were interested and a private equity firm in America that were interested, just those 2 parties. We spent about 2 months with the VC firm, and then that fell through. They basically decided to buy another company that they thought was better. Then we talked to the private equity firm, and within about 6 weeks, I'd spoke to the founder, I'd spoke to the co-founder, they'd spoken to my team, and they were like, right, we like the team, we like the business, we like the product, we want to proceed into due diligence. So then we signed the initial non-legally binding sale contract to take it off the market, go into DD, and then that was it. Then they started interviewing, again, the team, the customers, going through the ads, going through the program, getting lawyers to kind of approve of our messaging and so on and so forth. And that was, I think we signed in April, the non-legally binding purchase contract. And then at the start of September, that's when we signed the final APA, asset purchase agreement, and then we closed up on September 30th.
And in terms of, what was the structure like, in terms of the exit? Was it, kind of when we're speaking to people that are in the M&A space, is it, was it cash up front? Was it over a period of time based on performance? Did you have to remain in the business at all?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, this actually shifted a little bit across the process, right?
Okay.
So when they first came to us, they were going to pay cash. They were offering 100% cash up front, which we was like, great, let's go. Like, no problem. So the initial terms were cash up front on day one, stay in the business for 3 months from closing, help with the transition period. And I sold them 80%. I kept 20%. So I'm still technically a shareholder. I still own a small portion of the business. So I'm still invested in its success. And I'm still working with them now and again to help keep building and growing it. But towards the end, and I'm talking 4 weeks before closing, there was, and this is down to me, this is completely my own fault, there were a few errors in certain P&Ls. And basically, so we sold for 2.6 EBITDA, right? That's what we ended up selling for. But
For those that are not familiar with that as well.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So EBITDA basically means net profit.
Yeah.
Right, basically means net profit. So we sold for our annual net profit, 2.6, essentially. And about 4 weeks before we closed, there was a few errors in the P&L that the private equity firm found through their due diligence. And they were like, look, this is kind of not what we expected. Then I had to spend more money rebuilding the books and cleaning the financials, essentially. We ended up knocking a bit of money off the EBITDA, the net profit, because of that. But then we closed nonetheless. So, and it also wasn't all cash up front either. It was a portion of cash and a portion across 2 years.
Okay, but, still very good deal because, we see in this space a lot of people that have to stay in the business for a lot longer period of times, have a lot longer tie-in or have the cash linked to the success of the business as opposed to a pre-agreed amount. So I think it's a very good negotiation. I was going to touch on a few things from that story. When you first sort of started going out to people and you'd done sort of friends and family, you'd done people in the business, you'd done competitors, and you kind of got no, how did you feel at that point? Well,
so honestly, I was just trusting Dan. Dan said, do that, I did it. Dan said, right, do that, I did it. So I didn't know what would happen. I didn't even know whether I could sell. I just wanted to sell and I was trying to sell. And I thought, well, Dan has done 13, 14 acquisitions now. Let me just kind of follow his lead and do what I'm told. But yeah, when I'd spoken to customers, when I'd spoken to competitors, when I'd spoken to the team and my friends, and it was all a no, I was a bit like, you know, where do we go from here? Because I didn't know anything about M&A advisors or building an IM, or I didn't even know about multiples. So when I first joined Dan said, what do you want to sell for? I said, if I can get a year's profit, I'll be happy. And he was like, you ain't getting a year's bloody profit. That's ridiculous to get 1x for a company like this. So even that I didn't know. I was completely new to it all. Dominic gave me a lot of peace of mind, because when he built the investor memorandum, it just looked and sounded really good, because all our numbers, a good team, a really good track record. So when Dominic gave me a lot of confidence, and we wouldn't have sold without Dominic. You know, I really owe that sale to Dominic, man.
I think a lot of that stuff is because I've seen similar things in my journey where getting the right people on board at the right time, because even down to like, you know, my ops manager, when we were talking about first building out the community, and I was like, oh, again, going through, but are people going to are they going to pay for it? Like, are they going to want it? I'm not sure. And then when she built out the offering, I was like, and I saw it on paper, I said, oh, this is great. I'd pay for this. Like, this is cheap.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you just, you know, that old saying, if your business only has you operating in it, then you only have the potential of you. Whereas the more people you bring in with expertise in different areas, you can just focus on what you're really good at, which was building, growing, scaling the business. But when it comes to exiting, if you've never done that before, you're not going to be able to do it, you know, and give the business the credit it deserves because you're not in a position to actually deliver that exit independently.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show the power of people and the power of coaching and the power of leveraging other people's experience that have been there. Because when you don't know, you're stuck and you don't know. You need to get knowledge and hopefully a good helping hand. You know, because again, if it wasn't for Dominic, man, I don't think I would have sold that business. And selling that business has made me a lot of money from the exit, and it's made me a lot of money from the coaching that I've been able to do off the back of it, which is obviously what I'm doing now, building this new education company. So the power of people.
I think something that's also interesting from that story is, like, you know, in our space in the property world, we often have conversations versus, you know, flipping versus refinancing and building a portfolio. And they're very, you know, conversations that are had sort of all the time, and the pros and cons of both, which I guess for you effectively at a certain point, you said, you know what, I guess the nice side is you don't have to sell all of the business because you get to keep a percentage of it. So you kind of almost got to have your cake and eat it. But what was it that made you really say, you know what, maybe this is time? I guess you touched on where you wanted to do and what you wanted to be, but has there ever been a part of you that said, kind of wish I still owned 100%?
You know what? So I've always had very clear goals, and I've always been very conscious of what I want to be happy. And when I owned that business, I had kind of a dream/plan, which was the following. So I wanted to have £1 million British pounds in cash after tax. I wanted to have 2 million of property owned outright and rented out. When I didn't have that, that's what drove me in the business, because that to me was like, to own my dream apartment outright as well, where I live. And when I didn't have that, I was using the business to get it. And then when I did get that, which I finally got at the time that I decided to exit, I was like, well, I've got what I want. Like, why am I doing this? You know, and that's what made me rethink it even, because I was like, well, you know, I've got the cash that I want, I've got the real estate that I want, I've got the passive income that I want, you know, now what am I doing all this for, kind of thing.
And I think that is something that a lot of people often miss out on. Like, when I hear people have conversations and they're like, I want to build £100 million portfolio, I want to do X, and I'm just like, but why? Like, what is it about that number that means something to you? Because like, the monetary curve is really strange. Like, if, for example, you talk about if you've got 2 million in your bank and somebody's got 20 million, there's not a lot more they can do. Like, you know, relatively, like, you stay somewhere slightly nicer, you know, but realistically at a certain point, the money doesn't give you that much more. So I think that's really important, a really great takeaway for people, to actually understanding what makes sense for you and work towards that, rather than just maybe trying to keep up with the Joneses or look at, well, these people have done this, so I need to do that. I think you can almost get lost in the numbers, and that there's so much money out there that if you're just chasing money, then you're never really going to find that happiness.
For sure, for sure. Well, that was my moment where I was like, well, hold on a minute. I've got what I wanted, so now what? And then it was more of a question, well, what do I just love to do with my time? And that answer was talk about business, help people build these businesses, help people grow and, these businesses.
Before we get onto the new business, so, we're kind of a property-based podcast. We're pivoting slightly into a little bit more, business and more conversation, because I think it always does go full circle a lot of the time back to it. We've all got to have somewhere to live. Why was it still, for you, it says £1 million cash in the bank, plus own your own home outright, plus £2 million worth of investment properties that, again, owned outright. Why was that still such like a big part? Why was property still kind of like a big part of your core underpinning of what kind of success and being comfortable meant for you?
Well, dude, it's the same mindset that I had when I was a musician. It was just capital management. So I've always had this healthy fear, right, that, what if it all goes wrong tomorrow? What if everything ends tomorrow? What if the business dies tomorrow? And that I just described, 2 million of property owned outright, 1 million in cash, owning my own home outright. Well, that gets my expenses as low as they can physically be, right? Then I think I had about 11k rent from all the houses and apartments that I had at that time, something close to that. And then I had 1 million in cash, which is good, trustworthy cash reserves, And that to me was, right, I'm set now. I can buy what I need to buy. The rent covers my living expenses. I'm technically fully financially free. And that was my dream, financial free position, right? But to come back to your question, why real estate? Well, I've just always loved property. I think, one thing that I'll probably get told off for on this podcast is
Thank you to those of you who have liked, shared, commented, but most importantly, subscribed to the channel. Did you know only 28% of people that regularly watch my videos have subscribed? Now we're trying to get that to 40% so we can bring on bigger and better guests and make better content for you. So if you could do that right now, myself and my team would really appreciate it. Now back to the video.
I'm completely against debt. I'm completely against mortgages. I have no debt. I've always bought property. From my third one ever, I always bought them with cash, and I quickly paid off the other 2 mortgages. So I'm completely against leveraging and shit, but maybe we can talk about that later. But I just think property is solid, it's trustworthy, it's long-term. Humans need homes. Humans pay rent to live in homes. So it's as predictable can be without tenant issues and so on and so forth. But yeah, I just love property, man.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people as well, the idea of, when we're getting into a lot more sort of, this sort of crypto and non-tangible, it's just something that I can go and, if I'm even thinking, how's the world going? Let me just go and touch my house. Let me touch it. It's a tangible asset that I can feel, like you said, people are always going to need homes. Dubai is slightly different. Sometimes they build new land, but in most cases back in the UK, we're in a place where there's a finite amount of land. We're on a small island, really desirable locations, whether it's, Dubai, London, or it's places that people always want to be. So that supply and demand curve, is always going to be in your favor, which I think is one of the reasons why a lot of people look at property as their safety net. And that's kind of the way I've always looked at it, that if I really mess this up, I've got X amount of money sitting here, X amount of money sitting there. And you said you've not started with £50, but started with something. So if I can start again with talking now about 2 million, 3 million, it gives you a bit more freedom to maneuver and operate within your business.
Dude, exactly. And one of my mentors once said to me, when you no longer need money, that's when you'll make the most money that you've ever made, right? And what he meant was basically work hard to be financially set. And then when you're financially set, you can just go and do whatever you want for love and passion. And that will probably make you even more money, because then you're doing it for love and passion, not just chasing money, And in that first business of mine that we're talking about here, that I sold, it was, I was chasing money. I was trying to push. I was trying to make the most possible. I was trying to scale as far as possible. And it's very please work. Let's build, let's grow, let's see how far we can push it. And it's hard work when it's like that because it's stressful and it weighs heavy on your shoulders. But yeah, when you can get yourself in that position where you don't really care, wow, it's so much easier to make money, man.
So we're going to have to talk about the little elephant in the room, the fact that, he's anti-debt, anti-leveraging. We're going to have that conversation. And I like that to play devil's advocate. So a lot of people will be looking at you and saying, look, well, you've got the safety net of owning your own house outright. So you don't have the financial pressure over there. You've got a number of assets, but why would you say let's say for argument's sake, at £2 million, if you could leverage that and potentially own £8 million worth of assets, what is it that you personally feel doesn't sit right with you or doesn't work for you in doing that?
No one's asked me this in quite a while. And it's funny, there was a time when I was thinking of paying off because the first 2 houses I bought them with mortgages. One was 51K, and one was, I think, 60 odd K. But I bought them with mortgages because I was very, very broke back then. And fast forward a couple of years, and I was making really good money with the education business. And I was at, funnily enough, one of Dan Bradbury's masterminds. And I said to Dan, Dan, just out of interest, do you buy property with cash or with mortgages? And he was like, oh, obviously with cash. I was like, oh. And what would you recommend that I do? Should I do cash or mortgages? And he was like, well, look, the reason I only buy with cash is because it helps me sleep at night. Because it gives me more peace of mind that I own everything. Banks can't fuck with me. Mortgage rates can't, go up on me. And one thing that I've always done is if someone knows more than me or they earn more than me, I just blindly copy their advice, right? Now, sometimes to my detriment, but if someone who, if I meet someone who's a billionaire and they say do this, I will do that. I won't question it. I'll just fucking do it. So when Dan said, I buy with cash, I'd recommend you buy with cash. I was like, right, well, Dan has bought and sold 14 countries and made millions and millions of pounds. He probably knows better than me. So I paid off the mortgages and started buying with cash. And if there's any reason as to why I do it, it is peace of mind. It's because I sleep better at night knowing when I look at the Starling app and it's just rent in, fix a window, rent in, no mortgages, no, costs coming out. It's a fucking great feeling.
I guess, yeah. I think, and one thing for me that I always say is I'm very much along the lines of there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all model.
Yeah.
So for loads of people, that wouldn't make sense for them because their leverage and what they could do with their money wouldn't go as far. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just remembered something else that Dan once said to me. So, again, we were having the property conversation. I think this was a different occasion. And he said to me, Will, how much are you making a month right now? And I was making something around 200,000 a month net profit in the old business. And he was like, people that use mortgages don't make 200 fucking grand a month. You could buy a house a month with cash, no problem. And that made me think that is actually true. Because when I didn't have money, I used mortgages. And when I did have money, I bought cash. So sometimes people need to use mortgages.
Yeah.
So.
That's why I think it's very circumstance-led.
Yeah,
I always think when we listen to the sound bites of you should only do this or you should only do that, I always say the best advice, if somebody says you should only do this without knowing who you are and what you do, is probably not going to be the best advice. We try and avoid giving blanket advice and just say, look, sit down and speak to people. Look, time has been flying today. We're going to very quickly, because I've got, studios let us know we've got a little time left. But then I think it's also quite good that we're going to touch very briefly on your new business, but then people can connect with you directly. Because one of the reasons that I bring people on is I try and always sit down with people that I actually know, like, and trust. So obviously we're now working together in terms of helping me with what I'm doing. And I thought it'd be great to bring you on because I think there's a lot of people in the property space that could potentially benefit from your new business. So got a limited amount of time, but just touch on what you are doing now.
Maybe. Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, when I used to own the old company, you're going to think I'm crazy for bringing this guy's name up again. But again, someone was at Dan Bradbury's mastermind.
Dan Bradbury just sponsored the episode, by the way. Yeah, Dan Bradbury.
Yeah, every bloody word. But no, seriously, right? Yeah. I owned the old bloody company. And someone messaged me on Instagram one day, this guy, Oliver Denyer, and he was like, Will, I'm at Dan's mastermind. Dan is talking about you and saying how well you're doing with the business. I have a similar business. Could you please help me? And Oliver was my first ever one-to-one coaching client. He gave me £3,000 a month. We did an hour once a week on Zoom, and I just helped him. And I took his business from about 20K to about 200K a month across about 10 months of working together. He was my first ever business coaching client. And then I got one more a few months later, one more a few months later, one more a few months later. And I loved it so much, man. It lit me up. I felt better when I got off the calls than when I got on the calls. And that's part of the reason why I sold as well. Because I was like, I don't need this company. I don't like this company. I love the business coaching that I'm doing. I want to just go all in on that and do it full time. And that's a big part of the reason why I sold was that. So when I sold the business, I actually already was making about 50, 60, 70K a month doing the business coaching. And that gave me more peace of mind in exiting as well, because I already had this thing here working. And nowadays, the company is called buildgrowandexit.com officially. And it's not going to be a surprise, but I help people to either build or grow or exit online information businesses, online coaching businesses. And I work with, everyone from beginners to people doing 200K a month to people making 2-3 million a year to help them to exit. And it's really, really fun. It's really, really fun, man.
No, that's good. And also your book, Roy Reese. We haven't even spoke about the book. Do you know what? I'm going to go, by the way, if you're subscribed to this, if you are already subscribed, if you do like and comment on this video, we're going to run a little competition. Going to go and I'm going to go online. I'm going to order 10 copies. I'm going to do a nice giveaway so people can understand, because the book is called
How to 10 Million.
There we go. So if you want a How to 10 Million, make sure you're subscribed. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
For sure. I think the best place is the YouTube channel. I put up a video every week and just share everything that I've ever learned for free. Or Instagram to message me, or you can read my story on my website.
Amazing. Well, we're going to make sure we put all of the links in description. If you've liked this video, please make sure you subscribe. We're going to be back next week with another amazing guest. Peace.